Um, so last week, last week, we finished the first aim of the 29th word, which is on angels, immortality of spirit, and the resurrection. So the first aim is about angels and spirit beings, or immortality of spirit, and the second aim is gonna get into the resurrection. So we are studying the text with Dr. Yamina, who's here. I want to ask if anyone wants to give any reflections from over the last week. We were meant to read the fourth fundamental point again and reread the verses at the end of the section and just think about what we've reflected on through the reading and last week. So if anyone wants to kind of share, they can do that. And if not, we'll start reading the second aim, inshallah.
Norbana, would you like to summarize maybe some of the reflections that the sisters shared on the in our chat?
I can, but if you have some in mind, you can go ahead. Because I need a second to pull it up.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but oh, I see Ziba's here. Ziba had beautiful reflections on drinking tea and her experience with pausing with the Nursi's text of angels and 40 to 40,000 heads, each head having 40,000 tongues and 40,000 meanings. So just this concept of every one thing that we interact with has endless layers of communication for us to sit with. And I believe Seima actually shared something in the chat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you guys would like to unmute and maybe even summarize what you shared, they were very beautiful.
I was just the tea example was there, and I was even just reflecting today with Sister Ali about water and how, like, the first key factor is that the need is given to us. That's Allah's sunnat Allah, you can say, or this need was put in me so that I crave or I feel thirsty for water, and then when I obtain water, then my interaction starts with one of his blessings that he has put he has put it so that I can interact with it and then know him through that creation of his. So be it tea or water or anything which we interact with, how it, like, first I need to come into presence when I'm interacting with that. Like, we drink water so many times, or we drink tea without even thinking, like, things are happening. It might cause what your freshness to you, or bring refresh, like you feel refreshed after drinking tea. But if I don't pause and interact, then I think I missed the opportunity to that was sent my way through that tea. So my reflection was that if we just take a pause and look at the color, the senses which we are given, like touch and to see, these all senses were given to us so that we can interact with that creation of Allah. And then the interaction, um, what it creates, the second level is not the matter interacting with matter. You know, the tea incited something in me, and a matter cannot incite something in a matter. So there was an angel ordained to do that part from the tea itself, emanating those characteristics, and from me being my senses being motivated, or my senses being used. So that's the not the material side of it cannot do it. So just to sit with the cup of tea and sip it and enjoy that taste itself has that interaction which is angelic in itself, because matter cannot lead to that. And there are so many layers to it. Like if we keep on reflecting, like how this tea came into existence just to produce a branch of that tea leaf, what all Allah has put into creation. So how many angels, infinite angels, are being ordained, like from putting sun in its order and earth in its order, the axis of the earth, and then sunlight falling on that um, sapling, and so many, like there are infinite angels, like you were saying, Sarah. So if we just start reflecting on it, and when it dawns on us, that's the time where our heart feels so much of pleasure and thanks towards the one who created it. And then the ayah which I quoted in the WhatsApp group was إذا ذكر به خروا سجدا وسبحوا بحمد ربهم وهم لا يستكبرون. So when these the interaction I'm having, it is when it's made, like it doesn't happen to me, it was done onto me. Basically, it's a passive speech, so I am not the one doing it. It was done onto me. So once that interaction I feel, and the pleasure and all the things that were ordained to for me to have that taste of tea and connect to its source, then what would like that my natural instinct would be to fall in sajda, because the pleasure I got from interacting with the tea is showing me that how, like, his magnificence basically. So that's my the only way I can respond is by making sujood. That was my interaction.
Zakila khair, Ziba. I wanted to also just quickly read in similar to what Ziba was sharing. Fatma Noor, another good sister of ours, put in Chat GPT. She was sharing her reflections when she put in this conversation with Chat GPT that first of all asked, what happens in my body when I drink tea? Like, what are the processes? So she shared that part, and then she asked Chat GPT specifically, oh, can you tell me this process as if it was a story? And this is what really was beautiful. I'll just share this part as it relates to what we were talking about so far. Once upon a sip, the adventure begins. As you take a thoughtful gulp of tea, your digestive system sets its gears in motion. The warm liquid carries with it a troop of compounds, caffeine, theanine, and antioxidants on a quest through your body. So there's these troops that are set in motion. They call them caffeine, theanine, and antioxidants, but what we've learned is those things in and of themselves cannot be intelligent troops, right? First, the caffeine, a daring stimulant. This was very funny for me how they put personality traits on the on the chemicals, which made it for me very clear the personality traits or the characteristics that they were giving in this little story. First, the caffeine, a daring stimulant, swiftly infiltrates your bloodstream. It cleverly blocks adenosine receptors, sounding the alarm for heightened alertness. So there's something clever acting, something daring, something that heightens alertness. Meanwhile, the theanine, a calming character, enters the scene. It whispers to neurotransmitters like GABA and dopamine, weaving a tale of relaxation amidst the caffeinated excitement. Amidst this chemical ballet, polyphenol antioxidants emerge as unsung heroes, battling the sinister free radicals. So with one cup of tea, like the wording is just, this is all happening, these processes, and now we learn that with each process, there are beings acting through each chemical, each tiny little chemical in this chemical ballet is being moved by something. It says their noble mission to reduce oxidative stress and champion your health. As the adventure unfolds, the warmth of the tea wraps you in a comforting embrace. This elixir's thermogenic magic subtlety boosts your metabolism, a gentle nudge to your energy expenditure. And so the tale concludes with hydration, the liquid essence of the tea replenishing your body's wells. With each sip, you partake in a story of 40,000 angels. They say a bunch of other words, but with each sip, you partake in a story of 40,000 angelic spirit beings unfolding. And I thought that was very beautiful. If anybody else would like to share.
I think the conversation around that was very productive in the chat. So definitely join us on WhatsApp if you want to be part of the weekly reflections. And, you know, it starts with someone just sharing one introspection or something they recognize, and it kind of grows from there. So it becomes very, very helpful for everyone. Go ahead, Dr. Yamina.
Assalamu alaikum. I think it would be just nice to read the end of what we went through last week. It's interesting when Sarah was sharing with us the storytelling, and you can see that it's not possible to avoid an agency language because it's simple. There are many activities going on, so you need agents. You need someone to attribute to those activities to something. And those activities are wise, orderly, beneficial. They are not random actions. And that's exactly what we are reading here, and of course in the Quran, about the angels. If you remember, the angels' worship is both extremely orderly and perfect and most universal and comprehensive. I mean, those elements, they don't act sometimes one way and sometimes another way. That's why there is something called science. Consistently, we can study the order. They act that way wherever they go all the time in any living organism. So that's the definition of the angel. If you remember the last paragraphs that we read last week, when Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, he says, I saw a medium-sized almond tree which had close on 40 large branches like head. When I looked at one branch, I saw I had nearly 40 smaller branches like tongues. Then I looked at one tongue of one of those small branches. 40 flowers had opened on it. And it could be just a small bush, like that's also a universal way of plants. That's how they are created. And I studied the flowers considering the wisdom in them. And so in each close on 40 exquisite and well-ordered stamens, colors, and arts, each of which proclaimed one of the all-glorious Maker's names and their constantly varying manifestations. And then he says, is it at all possible that the all-wise and beauteous one, so this is God's, the all-wise, beauteous one, who is the all-glorious maker of the almond tree, would impose this many duties on an inanimate tree? It means, is it possible that this living tree coming up with all this beautiful, orderly, wise flower branches and leaves, could this thing be just an inanimate thing and not mount on it an appointed angel appropriate to it, to be like its spirit, to be like its ruh? And of course, this will make sense to us to the extent that we become more connected to our ruh. I'm saying to our ruh, it's actually, it's a contradiction, because it's not like I exist and I have a ruh. That duality, that disconnect is already coming from a ghafla perception of the word, a ghafla paradigm. Because in fact, there is a ruh in a physical being that's having a physical experience in this world. So when I say I, we, actually it's the ruh. But because mostly we are not identifying consciously with that, that's who we are, but we're not conscious of it, we tend to start using the language in a, it becomes difficult to express, and we may even like use contradictory language. That's why he's saying it's like its spirit, to understand and express its meaning. That angel, because something is going on here consciously, and I can understand it and I can communicate with it. So something there is speaking to me. To me, the conscious me, it can't be the matter, the dead matter. And express its meaning and proclaim it to the universe and present it to the divine court. And of course, here what comes to mind is the tasbihat, when we are told in many ayat, and some surahs start with that, and we are told the seven heavens and the earth and all being therein declare his glory. There is not a single thing but celebrates his praise, and yet you don't understand how they declare his glory. We don't understand because we're not listening. And the only way for us to make conscious shahada, and therefore shahada contains the tasbih. Tasbih is first step, refute shirk, and by proclaiming the shahada. When I say La ilaha illallah, the first part of the shahada is refuting shirk. So when I say La qadira illallah, La khaliqa illallah, there is no powerful except God, no maker, no creator except God, no helper, no provider except God. That's how we are going to actually perform the shahada and glorify God by proclaiming his beautiful names. And this, we do it by observing and witnessing the shahada and the tasbihat of the creation. That's why it's very important. That's why al-musabbihat, the surahs, there are many surahs that starts with this. The first part of any surah is saying that this is very important, attracting our attention. And so we are told, and you are not aware, you don't understand, la tafqahuna, you don't comprehend how they declare his glory. It doesn't mean that it is not understandable. It means most people are not trying to understand. If it's Allah is saying this to me, it means pay attention. And in Surah Sad, we are told it is, God says it is we who made the hills declare in unison with him our praises at eventide and at break of day, and the birds gathered all with him. They turn to Allah, to God. And do you not see that Allah, whose praises all beings in the heavens and the earth celebrates, and the birds with wings outspread, each one knows its own salat, its own prayer and praise. And Allah knows, and God knows all what they do. So it reminds us this description in the Quran talking about everything, because everything is glorifying God. So when we, both ways, if we are really reflecting and participating in the glorification of the universe of beings out there, then how are we participating? With our ruh, with our heart, with our soul. And so we will realize, even if we can't articulate it clearly, that we are together at an angelic malakuti level, as the ruh communicates with the angels. We start feeling the angels. If the angels are totally alien to us, it means even if we speak about the ayat in the universe, we are speaking about it as an intellectual construct, which is okay in the beginning to understand, but that's not what it is. It is a reality. It's not something to talk about only. It's a living reality. Until it becomes our experience of the world, the angels will remain alien to us. But here the author, Imam Nursi rahimahullah, he says, oh friends, so far, that's why he says this, our explanation has been an introduction. So he's aware he's talking about there are angels. He's not telling us what angels are, and it's not easy to explain what angels are. You have to go and practice it. Has been an introduction to bring the heart to acceptance and reason to submission. There must be something. And of course, to submission, because when the heart accepts, when there is acceptance and rida and tawakkul, then we know our limits. And so the one who surrenders knows that reason cannot comprehend everything. Most of our life, we don't live with reason. If we just pause, because lots of things you cannot, unless you eat the food, unless you drink the water. If you never drunk water, you wouldn't know what it is just by talking about it intellectually. So reason is a tool. It's a good tool, useful tool, but it's not the only tool, and we can't rely on it for everything. That's just a misuse to hide behind the reason, the ego that denies any power over it and wants to claim rububiyyah, hides behind reason. That's not reason. Reason cannot know more than reasoning with whatever premise is given to it, and maybe questioning it. But it cannot question if the heart has not accepted. So the heart is first, because the heart is what matters. The heart feels this is haqq or not. And then reason to submission. And then the ego, when it says here soul, it means the ego to surrender. And surrender is something that we need to practice. We need to say it with words and practice it. Yes, yes, I surrender. I surrender means I accept the reality. I accept that my reason is limited. I accept that I can't know everything. I accept that I only know what is made known to me. I accept that I don't have power over anything, not even over my own so-called body or health or anything. The more I accept the reality, I surrender. I surrender to the one who is in control, who has power. And it's something that we need to renew day in, day out. Otherwise, it's very easy to start resisting without even realizing it, or live in a state of resistance without even realizing it. So he said, so this is an introduction about angels to bring the heart to acceptance, the reason to submission, and the ego to surrender. If you have understood it to some degree, because everyone is going to understand at different degrees, and you wish to meet with the angels, prepare yourself. And he says, purify yourself of wrongful prejudice. So don't assume the angels it must be this, or it can't be that, or something. Just be open. Now look, the doors of the world of the Quran are open. Enter and look. The paradise of Quran, the gates of the paradise of the Quran are wide open. And when you look at for instance, the first ayat that he's sharing, if you look at the translation, you will find between brackets some people saying winds, some people saying something else, messages. In fact, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say whether it's wind or not. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ, al-mursalat means those that are sent forth, emissaries. So why did they say wind? Because next ayah says فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا, violently storm. So if there is a storm, there must be wind. It could be, but at the same time in Arabic, storm, you can storm into a place. Storming has many meanings as well, just like in English, I guess. So when you look at the tafsirs, for instance, Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, he says the wal-mursalat, by the emissaries sent one after another. God swears by the many angels who are sent one after another, just like horses follow one another. And it's also said that these are the angels who are sent with good. Someone else says they are always sent with good, even when it is a reminder, even when it is a punishment, because the angels always come by divine command. So they are bringing down the divine command. The divine command of be is becoming through the angel. So it's always good, even if we think otherwise.
Dr. Yamina, I wanted to
Yes.
ask a question. The part that you read just before these mentioned verses, it made sense to me, and as I was, following it, I was expecting Imam Nursi to say, okay, so prepare yourself, prepare your heart, and then look at the universe with this new vision. Instead of that, he said, now look at the Quran with this openness and this, open heart. And so I was a bit like surprised with that. So it's as if like all this discussion about angels representing the ruh side of the creatures around us, and all of this discussion is to prepare us to look at the Quranic passages, and then the Quranic passages are going to be our window onto seeing the world anew. Is that?
Mhm. Yes, yes, exactly. Very, very nice question. Yeah, note and question and whatever clarification. Definitely. Yes, because he can't send us. Can you imagine if we need all this to just accept the existence of angels, and he send us to the world out there? It's like you have a bunch of new students. They barely studied anatomy, and you send them to the hospital to start then dealing with the patients. No, you send them first to get a proper education. That's how it feels to me. We need to first learn to listen to the Quran. It doesn't mean that we will understand everything, but at least get some guidance. And while we are reading, we will go and look at what others before us who taught and reflected and worked in this field on this has efforted, let's say. And we learn from them like we learn from teachers when we go to college, for instance. And so I went and checked, and for instance, I usually check Razi first, Tafsir al-Kabir, because he has usually he includes many other commentators' ideas and interpretations. And so he says some said winds, others said angels, and some said it could be both. Now, does it make sense to us that if you say wind or you say angel, is this contradictory? No, because the wind comes through angel. But if we see it as angel, it becomes more universal because it includes the wind and other possibilities as well. But they are not contradictory. So he says if we understand it as wind, yeah, it could be the winds are sent. And if we understand it as angels, the angels are sent not only through the wind, but through all kinds of creation. And then if we understand it as angels, why does it say فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا, which is, and when they blow violently. Actually, the translation that's used in this text, I think we can find better translations.
Maybe
So
just translation of these texts. Yeah, I think Asad is easy.
But anyways, the storming here in the storm, as Razi rahimahullah says, he says it could mean a storm, but it could also mean, in Arabic, storm has other, you can even storm. He says it could mean أن هؤلاء الملائكة يعصفون بروح. They storm. Anything can storm, come in violently or with force. So it's,
in terms of representing the agency we see in nature reflected, we need beings that are carrying out these divine commands.
Exactly.
Divine presence. So I think it makes sense. It is primarily referring to angels, and then angels are within the creation of nature. So it could be a storm, literally, figuratively. It could be, things around being distinguished, whatever that means. It could be distinguishing of the roots and the soil. It could be distinction of things in the more human level. But all of these, I think one thing that I've gotten from the study of angels with Imam Nursi is that you do need for the universe to make sense that there is this constant divine amber being commands being carried out, and angels represent that. And then with that vision, we have a larger understanding of these Quranic.
I mean,
scriptures.
just this
Yeah.
5 ayah, if we can reflect on it. And I was happily surprised that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, which was like studied with the Prophet والسلام, and is known like after the Prophet, maybe the most well-known first formal mufassir of the Quran, and he got the dua, the prayer of the Prophet والسلام. He says by the والمرسلات, by the emissaries, those that are sent one after another, he interprets it, he understands it as the angels that are sent one after another. So that's telling. And even in Tafsir al-Kabir in Razi, rahimahullah, he says, yeah, some people said wind because of this and this, but also those who said angels. And he says it could be both. And he goes on about angels, because if it's angels, then it includes not only the winds, but everything else, because nothing that has meaning or order or meaning, let's say, can exist on its own as matter without agency. And that agency behind it, someone is representing it. And those are the angels. So it's good to start there and start seeing everything as he said before, places of worship, as mosques, as bodies, as vehicles for angels. And these angels are not like, as we think of ourselves, one. I mean, I gave an example last week. Yes, we have one identity, but even within our body, so many things are going, it's like the branches within the branches within the branches. I'm thinking, and then without realizing, or I want my hand to move and it moves. So that one consciousness is not of the same kind as matter. It can have all this multitude of not agencies, but of field of activity. It's like you are seeing and thinking and doing something, all these tasks at the same time, but you are one single entity. And so it is for the angels. It's a tree, but the tree has also flowers and buds and a trunk and leaves, and so it's angel within angel within angel.
with this, shall we also look at the other verses that Nursi continues to mention? Thank you, Dr. Yamina, for this emphasis, and Isra for your comment. After he explains to us how to begin to confirm the existence of angels, now he's guiding us to go back to the Quran at these verses. So thank you, Nurbanu, for pulling them up. This is the next one. It is, I can't see the
This is
number of the surah.
79. Naziat, those who pull out. This was those sent forth, or that's how they translated it. And then he wants us to look at the first 5 verses here, and this is the Asad translation. Consider those stars, but stars is in brackets. So consider those that rise only to set. And then topics discussed in this verse is angels here. So that's a little footnote, I guess. Consider those that rise only to set and move with steady motion and float with floating serene, yet overtake with swift overtaking, and thus they fulfill the behest. I feel like once we look at it without the implied and kind of added in commentary or supposed topics, they become more clear. So if I had just read, consider those that rise only to set and move with steady motion and float, when you can just see those in the verse or the translation, it gives our mind maybe more freedom to see that those could be angels instead of just focusing on them being stars or planets or winds.
Also, like I'm not professional in Arabic by any means, but the fact that all of these verses so far are bringing to actions
Mhm.
and is not clarifying, like Dr. Amin was saying, the agent. It's like bringing your attention to the actions taking place around you in the world and guiding your consciousness to contemplate the conscious being carrying out those actions. And is there more? There was another set of verses, Nurbanu?
Yes, the next one is 97. This is the night of decree. Verse 4. In hosts descend in it the angels, bearing divine inspiration by their sustainers' leave from all that may happen.
The original is not bearing divine. It says تنزل الملائكة والروح. بإذن ربهم. Therein come down, descend, the angels and the spirit by God's permission.
Yeah, there's a little note actually here that says, literally, it says, and inspiration. For this rendering of ruh, see first sentence of 16:2. And the present instance is undoubtedly the earliest example of the Quranic use of this term in the sense of divine inspiration. So that's the translator, I guess, taking some liberties in his own way.
Because inspiration in Arabic would be ilham. ألهمها فجورها وتقواها. That will be he inspired it. And here it's والروح.
And the spirit is the literal thing. And in the English Risale Nur, they said that therein come down the angels and the spirit by God's permission in every errand. And at the beginning of the 29th word, Zubaydah said they also translate that as Angel Gabriel.
You know, what's interesting in that last verse is angels is plural. The coming down of angels. So all the verses that we saw so far are actions. And there's this sending down, تتنزل, malaika, والروح, the ruh, the soul is, or spirit is singular, but there's this plural presence of angels, min kulli amr, from every single happening. And I'll just, so the one thing that comes to me is just, if indeed in every single action, in every breath, in every sip, in everything that I do, opening my eyes, closing that, in every single moment of the orbiting of the world, the changing of the sun, the moon, everything is hosts of angels. There, if God willing, we can live with this understanding. There's really such a profound sense of the opposite of being alone. That would really leave someone to feel so safe in the affairs that seem, it would be impossible to see anything as chaotic if all the amr, which is the last word in the Arabic here, if every single happening is only happening by his troops of angels, we would be less apt to be so fearful or to assume something is chaotic if we see them around us in such troops. Like the ChatGPT offered this language of troops of very clever presence, because it is, Dr. Yamina said it, it's a very wise, sophisticated presence carrying out the all-wise command of this operation, of Operation Earth and everything that it contains in the decree of how it unfolds. So I'm very grateful for these verses to really help us pause with the enormity of what's being offered. Because kulli amr, it says every single thing. There is tatanazzul of malaika, there is sending down of plenty of angels in every single thing. So that's not light at all. That's, I mean, a major pause for me. If there's anybody else want to share.
I was walking today in the park, and there were leaves, like dried leaves that were on the ground. And as I was walking, the wind was blowing them, and as if they were walking with me. And I had the same imagery, like I am not alone, Allah has sent. And then each leaf cannot move without the command of Allah and without angels being employed. So I was literally imagining angels walking with me. And within our body, like, mashallah, they are, like Sister Yamina said, if you start looking inside, there are so many within us, like we are not us. It's so much more than us within us. But just outside also, like I felt like I had so many companions along with me on the path when I was walking. So it was like a delightful moment for me.
In his tafsir, Razi, rahimahullah, he starts, he has actually 4 pages of tafsir, which is quite long on this ayah only. But so he says there are many, usually that's how he starts, وَفِيهِ مَسَائِلِ. He always says there are many aspects to this. And the first one, he takes it means he's not the only one, it means that's how commentators understood, is the ruh here is referring to human being. So he said when human being was first going to be created, what they saw the potential for evil in human being, and they disliked it, and they were like, why did you even create this being? But then when they descended to the ruh and they found that human being has the potential of ma'rifatullah, of knowing God, and wata'atihi, and obeying God and worshipping him, ahabbuka, so they loved human being, fanazalu, so they prostrated and descended. So they agreed, they obeyed God's command to prostrate to Adam, to be at the service of this human ruh. And then he has other, but this is the first interpretation. So it's only when they saw that potential that they saw this, he calls it رأوا في روحك الصورة الحسنة وهي معرفة الله وطاعته. It means there is, the ruh fulfills its potential only in ma'rifatullah and obeying God and worshipping him. Anything outside that is ugly. But when there is that, then the angels, as we are told in the Quran, prostrate. Here he says they descend with this ruh. They accompany it, which is something to reflect on.
I will pull up the next verse, inshallah. That is the 66th surah and the 6th ayat. This is the Assad translation. And let me see. Okay, so we're only getting kind of the end of that in the Nursi text. O you who have attained to faith, ward off from yourselves and those who are close to you that fire whose fuel is human beings and stones. Over it are angelic powers, awesome, severe, who do not disobey God in whatever he has commanded them, but do what they are bidden to do.
So the angelic powers are angels. عليها ملائكة.
No. I guess this is for kind of like, because we have talked about categorically the different kinds of beings, and the angels obedience to God and their pleasure in just being obedient to God. So there are plenty of verses that can kind of illuminate us on that front. And he says also listen to, this is the 21st verse, 26 and 27. This is LMD. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, just real quick. The last verse, that they only do what they're commanded, which is what Dr. Yamina emphasized in the very beginning, to tie that back into where we are now. Particularly the last few words here. Okay, so the one thing that came to me is that the Arabic seems more powerful than the English, but عليها ملائكة, upon it is angels, غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله. So severe, awesome and severe, these spirit beings. This is not in some like faraway place. From my understanding, these beings that are being described here, لا يعصون الله, they do not disobey God, and they only do whatever they are commanded to do. That there was just something, Yani, that sort of broke in my head when that happened. And it speaks to what Nursi said, when he said that matter has no power and everything is only driving God's decree. So when we look at all of these things that are happening in the world right now, there is not a single thing but that these awesome and severe beings are present, and they only do what he commands them to do. So that takes all people out of the equation in a sense. The people in and of themselves and their quote unquote free will, we do nothing, we choose. But every single action, like Dr. Yamina said, even raising my hand is the command of an angel following what it's commanded to do. And there's not a single angel that does anything except that it follows his command. So anyways, there was some good news for me to receive that, if that makes sense for anybody else.
It is very good news, alhamdulillah, that everything is
Alhamdulillah.
under control. It also gives us, the more we read and reflect about the angels, the more it gives us a clearer meaning of what it means to worship God and obey his will, to surrender to his will. At least as far as we know, I may be doing something that is not in alignment of divine will, but I'm not aware. What matters is the moment I'm made aware of it, I'm willing to surrender and obey. So the angels do it. That's the way they are created. But for us, they are just like they teach us tasbihat in the creation when we start living consciously and consciously participating with them to declare our shahada and our tasbihat. In our life, the more we live in obedience, that following the divine will is not in order to be like angels, but that's to get the most outcome of our potential. Like otherwise, when we are not obeying, we are either consciously or most of the time unconsciously disobeying, getting away from divine will, which is the way of shaitan, by the way. And that takes us from everything that is good from God and his beautiful names, from the source of all goodness. It takes us away from there at different levels in our life. And that's why when we don't live with this consciousness, we feel it, because we feel the grief and sadness are not there as messengers. They become like our way of being, and they are heavy because that's not how we are created to live. They are heavy. They bring lots of pain, and lots of, we cannot see the light. They bring a darkness. We cannot see the light and the meaning, the beautiful meanings in this world, in the creation, in our inner world and the outer world. So it is very important. I always love this ayah in general, and as it pertains to the fire of hell, both ways. It's beautiful. Alhamdulillah that they obey. They're not like us. Otherwise, can you imagine if they were like us? It would be there would be chaos.
And I think that we would see chaos whenever we forget that there is not a single, again, or happening that's happening except by his angels following his command 100% of the time. So whenever that separation, it's like I forget that it's them. Anytime that I stop having this grounded belief in angels that Nursi is introducing now, it's easy to completely lose faith. So now I see why Iman, belief and faith and finding the security with God is so very intimately built upon the belief of angels. Because any separation from the obedient doers of his command will leave me to think that things are for a moment chaotic or not in control.
I was also thinking how in moments where things don't go according to our plan, it's like a gentle reminder that they're going according to the divine plan. So nothing is acting out of disobedience or chaos or randomness. Things are happening just the way they're meant to. So if something doesn't look good to me or feel right to me, I need to go back to that understanding that nothing is acting on its own. And sometimes they say that when our creator is looking out for us specifically, he'll make it hard for us to do things he doesn't like. So if you were going to do something sinful or bad or thoughtless, he doesn't let you do it, even though you intended it. And I think that's another intervention, angelic intervention, where he's reminding you, I'm watching out for you, I'm looking out for you. And that also makes me feel very loved and cared for.
Also reminds me of the Prophet ﷺ's hadith, إنما الأعمال بالنيات ولكل امرئ ما نوى. It takes now it makes more sense than before, because all what we have control over is our niyyah, is our intention to do something, and then that intention becomes our dua. And if the dua is accepted, whether regardless on what is the nature of this dua, it must be accepted for a divine decree to be sent to the troops of angels, and the troops of angels will carry out the action itself. So all what we can do is to intend or make a dua, and then once it's accepted, troops of angels, a divine order, command is sent to troops of angels, and troops of angels carry it out. So then what we are accountable for is our niyyah. إنما الأعمال بالنيات ولكل امرئ ما نوى. So this is why the niyyah becomes the prophetic teaching of pausing and clearing our niyyah before doing anything is a prophetic practice, because that is the only thing that we have actual choice to do. Makes more sense now.
Thank you for sharing. I am aware of the time, it's 9:10. There are a few more verses, but do you guys want to just pick up next week and then inshallah we can start reading the second aim then?
Maybe if we can finish the ayat, if anybody has to maybe hop off, just so that we can start, we can leave off with this and inshallah start with something new. That's okay.
Sure. So we have 3 more. This one is, we just did this one. Okay, 21. Surah 21, and we're going to look at verses 26 and 27. Okay, this is Surah Al-Anbiya. And some say, the Most Gracious has taken unto himself a son. Limitless is he in his glory. Nay, those whom they regard as God's offspring are but his honored servants. They speak not until he has spoken unto them, and they act at his behest. Israbla, I see that you're unmuted. Did you want to share anything?
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I know we're on time, Nur Banum. Thank you for your patience. They speak not. I don't know. This is the Arabic. Yes, yasbiqunahu. I didn't know that was referring to speaking, but okay, no, it doesn't. All right. So maybe this translation is
No,
not so accurate.
يسبقونه is not speaking. لا يسبقونه بالقول. They do not speak before him, before he speaks. They are always listening obediently. سبق يسبق and then لا يسبقونه بالقول وهم بأمره يعملون.
Oh my God, that's even more profound than this English. I think this English doesn't. It said speak and spoken, so it confused me. So, okay, we're obviously going to need time to sit with these. This could be our homework, inshallah.
So it means they are waiting for Allah's orders to, like they
Yes.
don't precede orders.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't speak. They just wait for him. They're always ready, always listening carefully, obediently.
And so when we listen carefully to what we're feelings, for example, when a feeling lands on us, when we listen to that feeling that is now speaking, we understand that there is a medium. I'm listening to his speech through this medium of this presence, which doesn't speak except that it's delivering exactly what he wants to deliver to me. Is that right?
Mhm. I mean, they do that. We need to also learn from. Just like they teach us the Shahada, they teach us the Tasbih, they teach us how to be obedient.
But don't they question God when he is creating human beings?
And they question, but because they're conscious, but they still don't disobey. They're not like us. We don't like it. Okay, bye. Even when we don't understand the wisdom at all, we are so arrogant.
And that's good connection, because we can see their question when Adam, human being, alayhi salam, is being created. They say, why? And that could be taken as a why. Why? We don't understand it, like as in rejection. But it doesn't have to be. It can be really like, why? We are confused. You know, why? And that has always fascinated me. That willingness to ask a question.
It's out of concern rather than not to discover.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, what could it
It's a
be?
sincere question.
Yeah, I mean, this creature is gonna shed blood, and we see that it is really able to shed a lot of blood, and so why? So that's yeah. This is all very helpful. I must say today, uh, we're over time maybe, but if I may share, I was very burdened today because I happened to read some things online regarding the Palestinian situation. And I read some stuff that's extremely hateful. I just came across on Twitter, extremely hateful. And it really unsettled me, because how could somebody be so hateful and so it really unsettled me in a way that I wasn't expecting. Of course, there are hateful people everywhere and in every subject, all kinds of racism in the world. But this, I don't know, what I read really troubled me, that it felt like a willful ignorance that didn't even want to relate or talk, and same lies being repeated. So I was very unsettled, and part of me was very scared that there are a lot of people who intend on. It felt that way to me. The intent on justifying genocide, whatever it takes. And but this part that you have just mentioned, they don't speak before God and do what's commanded. Seems like it gives me some keys, because maybe I'm speaking too quickly, and I need to listen to that feeling of being disgusted and scared. I mean, other people become more brave, but I can get really unsettled in a way that I feel I want to coil, and I'm scared that these people are gonna just run away because they seem so insistent on maintaining a racist narrative. But then that feeling of being unsettled, I can listen to it like an angel coming to my heart. And before I speak it, and I was like, I'm scared. This is too bad. They're gonna again, hijack the narrative, and they could do anything to hijack it. And they have airtime on TV, and our politicians are with them, and on and on and on. Before I get panicking, I can listen to that being unsettled. There's something that feeling is telling me, and I'm interpreting it as, okay, we're not gonna win. We meaning here, justice is not gonna win. But it doesn't have to be that way. Why am I speaking before the emotion? And I already started hearing it as you guys were talking, and I felt like, it's telling me something else, not to coil and feel pessimistic, but it must be telling me something else, because angels bring his command.
Now you can empathize with the angels when they saw the potential of human being, they were like, how come? Why are you creating such an evil creature? So we have this evil potential. We recognize that. Unless we recognize it, we won't feel the very urgent need to seek refuge with God. Not only seek refuge, like we want to be helped and cared for, and we are already. Allah is doing his part. But our part is, in order to receive that, is to obey divine will, surrender to divine will. Don't question everything. 5 times you pray, 5 times you pray. It means this is the best for me. But why in the morning I'm tired? No, if you get used to it, you won't be tired. That's it. You get used to everything else. Or whatever the ibadah and ubudiyah. Part of believing in God is believing in the angels, but I don't have time to reflect. What do you have time for? Everything else this is the main purpose of life. Everything else is secondary. But then it's a time to pause and question our priorities. So this gives us a wake-up call. Do you want to be like this? Look, this leaving the straight path at the very end goes to this. Hearts full of hatred. Do we want to go to that path? No. So what do I need to do? Plus, tomorrow I may not be here. So what are our excuses? The angels live in the now. They don't have like we do, we plan for 20 years later when we don't know if we're going to live 1 month more. So they are all wake-up call, signs, reminders, as it says in the Nazi'at, فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا. No, what was it? Not the Nazi'at, the one before. What was the thing before the Nazi'at?
مرسلة.
والمرسلات عرفا فالعاصفات عصفا فالملقيات ذكرى. It's all dhikr. It's all reminder. Everything is reminding us. And then we will remember that, yes, these people, yes, it's easier to destroy than to build. But alhamdulillah that at the end of the day, there are much less people full of hatred than people where the fitrah is still speaking. Otherwise, the world will be gone. Human being is such like the worse than nuclear weapons. We're the worst enemy of life. So alhamdulillah that it's not a majority. But firstly, it's for ourselves.
I was seeing there was a clip about during the ceasefire in Gaza, they are having a wedding. So, subhanAllah, like they are living in present. Like for us, we are looking at all these pictures, horrific pictures, and we are this is sinking in so deeply the darkness within us because we are receiving it like uncensored and the raw pictures are coming. But people who are living there, like I saw the kids who are sliding down on like they are living in present right now and they are facing it moment by moment. And I think that's also a message for us.
May Allah give them, because Allah, whoever is willing, when there is a hardship, Allah gives the sabr and to deal with it. But if we are not surrendering, then we are not willing to stay in the moment. And we can't deal with anything then. Because we're not dealing, actually. We just accept that someone is in control. When we don't, then we start going horizontally. Some people are in control, and lo and behold, if those people are evil, then we are all doomed. But alhamdulillah, when we remember, alhamdulillah, that we are not at the mercy of anyone. At the end of the day, it's Allah who gives the last decree. By their hand, by someone else's hand, we don't care where it's coming from. Of course, we do our part. And at the same time, we know that it's from Him. When we know that it's from Him, how we feel, how we act is going to be very different.
We have one more verse, but I was thinking about how, I said they asked God, why are you creating human beings? I just imagined and Dr. Yamina said, they ask out of sincerity and they don't just walk out. It would have been so tragic, of course, if they staged a walkout or a protest and they were like, well, we're not going to stick around if you create this being. Right. So we really do have to be grateful that they're just obedient to God. And
they have lots of reason to walk out on us.
yeah. And I think they're and I was thinking about that because for the previous verse, you said that when angels learn that the ruh, like the human being, has potential in Ma'rifatullah and knowledge of God and obedience to God, then they like that potential, and that's why they accompany us. So I just like that those two thoughts just came to me, and I thought that was they're on our team, as long as we fulfill our purpose, inshallah.
Thank you for saying that, Noor, because it reminded me of something that came to me with Isra's comment. So when I engage with something and then something comes up in me that says, I don't like that, how could that be? Or so there's a communication speaking to me inside, like Isra was saying. MashaAllah, Isra, was such a beautiful reflection because you can see just the discovery happening in how you spoke. So I invite you to do that pausing and listening, because when that speech comes to you that says, how can someone be so hateful? We don't like that. And when you hear that, you can say yes, right? Because Dr. Yamina was sharing Imam Nursi's text about surrender. Let's hop right back into yes mode, because it's easy to separate again. And when we separate, we lose sight of the angelic side, or the angels. And we say, oh, that person's so hateful. Oh, I was a blemish shaitan regime. This shaytan. Instead of teaming with the angels and saying, yeah, you know what? You're right. We don't like that.
We stay
That's
with
how
the
we're made.
we stay with the fear, we stay with all the emotions that will come with that event.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise,
And
it
if we
will be
listen,
like استعيذوا بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, but we didn't deal with anything. The mess is still there. We just pushed it under the rug.
Mm-hmm. And there is, of course, reason to seek refuge from the evil, and at the same time listen. I feel like this gives us such an easy detour right back into the highway of yes, by teaming up with the angels to what they're saying inside, and saying, you know what, yes, I agree with you. We don't like that. Yes, that's true. That's how we're made. We're made to dislike that. We need it.
And yes, we fear. That's why we seek now refuge with God. It is fearful.
True.
It is scary.
True. Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a beautiful way. So yes, that is scary. So what do we need? Yes, we need safety. Let's turn that into prayer together And that becomes now you teaming up with the angels instead of being separate and remaining afraid and not feeling safe. We can use that event saying yes to, now we understand we're saying yes to what? The angelic communication, and use it as a detour to turn right back to prayer and connection, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Tamam, Jazakumullah khair bu Yemina hocam. and Sarah. Aleyküm selam.
I just like to add something about angels and human creation. And in other parts of Risale-i Nur, Bediüzzaman also explained that the human being, even so, yes, Allah has created in best mold, and then we can also go up to higher level than angel if we are obedient to Allah. So yes, we are created as a human being, can be evil. Yes, we have both sides, goods and bads in us. So dependence all we have used whatever Allah had created in us in a good way or bad way. Yes, we can go even lower than in much more evil disbelievers, Allah forbid. But at the same time, all the goods that Allah put in us, and within obedience to Allah, we can go higher level than angels. So Allah is most merciful. Yes, human beings, some is bad. Yes, it's really, really bad and really evil. But that's happening from creation of the world and it's going to continue until end of the world. So this is part of testing. Otherwise, test wouldn't be, if it wasn't be test, we won't be a higher level of angels. This is the test, that difficulties, that hardship, wherever Allah rather than us, and we find a way to not to leave straight path and obedience to Allah, inshallah, we would be a much higher level. I know everybody might, Allah only knows who would reach in that level. Not for everyone. Absolutely not. We have to understand that. But Allah had created in that quality in us. So if we strive for it, yes, we can. So that door is open for everyone. So I thought that's also, we need to focus on it also, that Allah had created human being in the best mode. But our action and behavior, it can take us to lows and low, as it said in Surah At-Tin.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. If I may, I'm sorry I joined in late, but I've been thinking a lot about angels having contrasting characteristics. And I think in the study of just angels and then comparing, just for better understanding of human condition, Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Tahrim that protect your families from fire, because I have severe angels who then will bring you to account, and they don't disobey me. Or in another ayah, there is mentioning of for the disbelievers or people who are not living by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, angels spread out their hands and say, give up your soul. But then we also have angels who pray for us for forgiveness, and people who are good people, good souls, good hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed angels to welcome us, inshallah, into heavens at every step, when we are dying, when we are in qabr, when we are in barzakh. And because there are narrations that good deeds will appear like a beautiful face, or angels might say that stay here in the resting place for a while, but here is where you belong, or you will go, which is the heavens. So them being harbingers of good news and bushra or basharat is what obviously we all would want. That's the companion, that's the company we get of the angels when we are departing or have departed. And then also in other ayats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Ruhul Qudus, that the obedience of the angels is such that with him, Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam, and then the rest of the countless angels, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have rank upon rank of, or ranks upon ranks of angels coming down when the heavens will be rolled up and the judgment day will be established. So it tells me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has at his command his most obedient creature, which angels are. And maybe there is lesson in that too for us, that if we are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever we are doing, if we want to be angelic, in some sense of the word, like be, like they say in Christianity, be godlike or godly, which means I had a person explain to me that she said it doesn't mean that we are saying that some person has God image, but it's more like whatever Allah's sunnah is, that we should emulate it in our existence and in our dealings with other people as we live on earth. So I think that obedience is that hallmark of um, angels who glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Dr. Yamina, I know you've often said that the glorification is so automatic in all existence. When Allah says it in the Quran, from the stones to the mountains to clouds and rainwater and angels, of course, that these are the ayats that we need to pay attention to, including the angels, as a sign that if we really want to reach that level of angelic obedience, then it's a constant walk, and we can't be laissez-faire about it. We can't be light-hearted about it. It's something to be dedicatedly done, and in our human earnestness, impatience, ungratitude, or lack of discipline, we can err if we don't keep that high ideal in our hearts and minds to at least be closer to it, if we can't be perfectly like angels. I just wanted to share that. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Saira. Thank you, Saira. I think we have only one verse left. If we can just quickly look at it, Nurbanu, and then we'll be done, inshallah. With this section, we can sit with the rest of these verses for the week.
Yeah, the last one is from Surah, the 72nd Surah. It's the first two ayat. So this is Surah Al-Jinn. And the translation is, "Say, it has been revealed to me that some of the unseen beings gave ear and thereupon said, Verily, we have heard a wondrous discourse, guiding towards consciousness of what is right, and so we have come to believe in it, and we shall never ascribe divinity to anyone beside our sustainer." So here, I guess
Yeah,
the translation of jinn is unseen beings, which is a little ambiguous. I'm sorry, I didn't see who was unmuted.
I was just gonna say, maybe given the time, we can just pause with this one, and just sit with these verses. And maybe for the first 5 or 10 minutes next week, we can start with reflections on this and then begin, inshallah, the second aim.
Inshallah. Again, I wasn't able to put this on YouTube. I'll ask Dr. Isra to do that, and then once she does, you guys can add your comments on the YouTube channel, inshallah. We'll stop here. We are way over time, and I apologize, everybody. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة على رسولنا الصلوات.